Today, we are pulling back the curtain on something critical, but maybe not always obvious in clothing: seam allowance finishing.
Yeah, it sounds small, doesn't it? But it's huge.
It really is. I
Yeah.
mean, this isn't just about neatness, right? This is where things like durability, cost, even structural engineering kind of meet the craft of fashion.
Absolutely. It's often the difference between a garment that lasts you years and, one that starts fraying after the first wash.
Mhm.
And this decision, what you do with that raw edge of fabric inside the clothes, it really impacts the whole life cycle of the piece. The sources we've looked at, they lay out a pretty clear framework for understanding it.
So our mission today, let's make it clear. We want to quickly organize and synthesize the, what is it, 5 main categories of seam finishes, plus the essential reinforcements.
That's right.
The idea is to give you, the listener, a practical blueprint so you can immediately assess the quality, the intended use of any garment you pick up.
And this is really fundamental. Before a pattern maker even decides on the seam allowance with maybe half an inch, maybe 5/8, they have to know the finish first.
Right, because the finish dictates the space you need.
Exactly. So knowing these techniques isn't just like theory, it's really the shortcut to understanding the true perceived quality, especially on unlined pieces, a blazer, a simple cotton shirt, whatever.
Okay, let's start in the beginning then. The absolute lowest rung, maybe, the foundation for, say, speed, prototypes, basic protection.
Right. We have to start with the raw edge, which is, well, it's basically the non-technique, leaving the seam completely untouched.
Yeah, I think we've all seen this, maybe on a cheap Halloween costume or some fast fashion piece where the edge looks like it's just waiting to unravel.
Exactly that. And the sources are clear. Its purpose is incredibly narrow. It's strictly temporary.
Okay.
It's maybe okay for quick prototypes, internal fit samples, or, and this is key, only in the rare case where that raw edge will be fully enclosed and secured later.
Like with a full lining.
Yes, exactly. If you're applying a full lining that traps the seam allowance completely, and then you top stitch that allowance down to keep it flat, sometimes the raw edge is left alone inside that sandwich.
Okay, so crucial takeaway. If you spot a raw edge inside clothing and it's not clearly trapped or stitched down by another layer, that's probably a sign of corner cutting.
It absolutely is. It compromises durability. It's the ultimate temporary solution. High risk of fraying, high risk of structural failure down the line.
Got it. Red flag.
Now, moving one step up, the most common, the fastest, probably the most economical actual finish, the serged edge.
The overlock stitch.
Yep.
Or a zigzag.
Yep, that's the word.
This is what most people will probably picture inside like a standard t-shirt,
Yeah.
right? What makes this the go-to for mass production?
Speed and simplicity. The mechanism is quite clever in its efficiency. The machine makes stitches that loop around the raw edge, all in one single high-speed pass.
So it stops the immediate fraying, damage control.
Pretty much. Excellent damage control. And it costs very little time, very little thread compared to other methods. It's used mainly on internal seams you don't see, especially in basic knits or, say, medium weight wovens where the main seam line itself does the work of holding things together. The serged edge just stops the unraveling.
So it's the high-speed production choice.
Definitely. It's versatile, it's cheap, but seeing it tells you the priority was probably efficiency, maybe not maximum longevity or super high-end aesthetic.
Okay, let's unpack this further then, because now we're making a pretty big conceptual leap, aren't we?
We are.
We're moving from just basic fray protection to actively hiding the raw edge completely, using only the garment fabric itself. This is the category you called self-enclosed seams.
Exactly. And this category has two absolute titans of construction. They both hide the raw edge, but their applications, their goals are almost opposites. One's for strength, the other's for, well, delicate visibility.
Okay, let's start with the one that sounds elegant. The French seam. How can I spot that one? What does it look like?
A French seam. On the inside, it looks like a tiny, very neat little fabric envelope along the seam line. It's considered the gold standard when the inside of the garment is visible and the fabric is delicate.
Right, so we're talking lightweight sheers, silks, maybe high-end scarves.
Precisely. If you're looking at a premium lightweight blouse, maybe chiffon or something, and you see that perfect, clean, enclosed seam, you know someone paid attention to detail.
But there must be a downside.
There is thickness, because you're essentially folding the fabric 4 times in that small area. Try putting a French seam on, say, thick canvas or heavy wool. You'd create this huge, hard ridge. It would make the garment bulky, heavy, maybe even uncomfortable.
Okay, that makes total sense. Which naturally brings us to the second giant in this category, the industrial workhorse, the flat-felled seam. This one's all about strength, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's the strength champion of seam finishes. Unlike the French seam, which is about clean looks and light fabrics, the flat felled is designed for maximum stress.
How does it work? How does it achieve that strength?
Well, it works by folding both seam allowances over to one side, tucking the raw edge under, and then securing the whole thing flat against the garment body with usually 2 rows of top stitching.
Okay, I can picture that.
Jeans.
Exactly. Think denim jeans, especially the yoke, the inseam, the side seams, those 2 parallel lines of stitching you see on the outside.
They aren't just decorative. They are literally locking those fabric layers and yarns down flat. It gives phenomenal resistance to pulling and stress.
So the stress is distributed across the main seam and the secured allowance.
Precisely. That's why it offers very high strength. It's
Yeah.
built for abrasion, for tension. So denim, sturdy shirting, workwear, bags sometimes, anywhere things get pulled or rubbed a lot.
That distinction is incredibly clear now. Flat-felled equals rugged, engineered strength. French seam equals delicate, aesthetic enclosure.
Yeah.
Different problems, different solutions.
Exactly. Now, if we sort of connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
we move beyond relying only on the main garment fabric for the finish. We start adding other materials,
Okay.
either for, say, premium aesthetics or for structured support. This takes us into the next 2 categories of more complex finishes.
All right. First up, trimmings. This is where we see things like bias tape, binding, and that really classic one, the Hong Kong finish. Why bring in extra materials here? What's the goal?
The purpose is really twofold. One, obviously cover the raw edge, but 2, and this is critical, is to lend support and shape to that seam edge, something the main fabric might not do on its own, especially if it's lightweight or prone to stretching.
Okay, so where would we typically see these?
Primarily in high-end unlined garments, where the inside is totally visible. Think about the inside of a nice unlined jacket or a lightweight coat, maybe a skirt with a slit where you see the facing edge.
The Hong Kong finish often gets pointed to as, like, the ultimate sign of interior quality, doesn't it?
It really is often seen that way. It's a very specific aesthetic choice. It involves wrapping the raw edge with just a single layer of tape, often a contrasting color or fabric like silk.
Right, you see that contrast.
Exactly. And then you stitch very precisely just inside the fold of that tape, catching the edge. It gives this incredibly elevated premium look, and functionally, it gives superb edge control, especially around curves or corners, stops them stretching out over time.
But it sounds time-consuming, and you need extra material.
Absolutely. That higher cost and extra time, well, they're visible in the final product. You are literally paying for that perfect, often contrast-wrapped interior. It signals quality.
Okay, so that's using extra material for beauty and some control. What about using extra material purely for structure?
That brings us neatly to our final category. Also uses extra material, but the goal here is primarily structural integrity. The piece of fabric finishes.
Right, so the question you raised earlier,
Yeah.
how do we stabilize a curve, a neckline, a front opening, using fabric pieces?
This is really the engineering solution for contouring. It involves adding separate pieces of fabric facings, yokes, plackets, waistbands, specifically to trap and conceal the raw edge for stabilization. They act like an internal frame.
Okay, explain the difference. Why not just, fold the edge over twice or something simple? Why add a whole separate piece?
Take a neckline facing, for example. It's cut to perfectly mirror the shape of the neckline curve. You sew it right sides together with the garment, then you understitch it, flip it to the inside, and press it flat. That process forces the seam allowance to lie flat and stay turned cleanly to the inside. It creates a crisp, firm finish that strongly resists stretching or distortion on that curve. Something a simple fold might not achieve, especially over time or on certain fabrics.
So it's all about creating definition,
Yep.
support, keeping shapes sharp.
Exactly. The pros are that neat professional finish. The trade-off. You need extra pattern pieces, extra fabric, and definitely more precise pressing and ironing steps.
Makes sense. You see this on necklines, armholes, fly fronts, collar stands, structured waistbands, anywhere you need that firm, defined edge.
Precisely. It's the necessary approach for those kinds of contours.
Okay, before we get to the decision matrix for choosing between all these, let's
Yeah.
quickly touch on strength again, but strength regardless of the finish type.
Yes.
We said the serged edge doesn't add much strength. French seams are for high tension.
Yeah.
So universal reinforcement techniques can be applied to pretty much any seam to boost its integrity.
Right. Stabilization is that crucial extra layer. And the source material detailed 4 essential methods that work across the board. First, stay stitching.
Stay stitching.
This is your preemptive defense. It's just a simple row of straight stitching done directly on the seam line of a single layer of fabric before you assemble the garment, usually on curves like necklines and armholes.
And its purpose?
To actively prevent that curved edge from stretching out of shape during handling and sewing, keeps the original pattern shape intact.
Stitching before you assemble. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay, what about areas needing serious fixed strength, like a shoulder seam?
That's where you need stay tape or fusibles. These are thin strips of stabilizing material, sometimes woven tape, sometimes non-woven fusible interfacing. You apply them directly to the seam allowance in critical areas.
Where specifically?
Shoulders are classic, necklines sometimes armholes in tailored jackets, button plackets, anywhere that needs to bear weight or resist constant tension without stretching over the life of the garment.
Okay. And what about really focused points of stress, like the corner of a pocket opening or where a slit ends?
Ah, that's where the bar tack comes in.
Yeah.
Essential. These are very dense, concentrated stitches, usually just a short line, maybe a 1/4 inch long.
Right, you see those thick little stitches.
Yeah. They're put in tiny, specific areas precisely to prevent catastrophic tearing. Think corners of pockets, the base of a zipper fly, belt loops, that they act like a reinforced stopper, halting any potential tear immediately.
Like a stress distribution point. So 5 main finish categories, plus this whole suite of reinforcement techniques. It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
So the big question for you, the listener, is how do I actually choose? How do I pick the single best method for a specific situation?
And that's where you need the decision matrix. You basically have to assess every seam based on 3 key criteria that came out of the research.
Okay, criteria number 1.
Interior visibility. Is the inside of the garment going to be seen?
Right.
If it's unlined, the interior is fully visible, and the fabric is delicate or high-end. You should probably opt for those premium enclosed finishes, the French seam or maybe a Hong Kong finish for that aesthetic pop.
And if the interior is hidden, say by a lining, or it's just a basic item.
Then, if speed and economy are the top priorities, the serged edge might be perfectly acceptable. Visibility dictates the aesthetic requirement.
Makes sense. Okay, criteria number 2.
Mechanical demand or stress level. How much tension, weight, or abrasion will the seam actually endure?
So thinking about how the garment is used.
Exactly. For areas under high stress where the seam itself has to carry a significant load, like we discussed with denim jeans, work shirts, maybe bags, the clear answer is the flat-felled seam.
Because it's engineered for strength.
Right. Here, strength dictates the choice, not necessarily the look.
Okay. And the final criterion, number 3.
Aesthetic and stability. This kind of combines looks and structure.
How so?
Well, if the garment is unlined and the primary goal is a clean, premium visual look on that inside edge, you'd probably choose binding or a decorative trimming, like the Hong Kong finish. The aesthetic is the driver. But if the main goal for that edge is structural definition, making a collar stand up firmly, ensuring a neckline curve doesn't collapse or stretch, then you must use the piece of fabric finishes. Trapping the edge is about function first.
That framework is brilliant.
Yeah.
Really clears it up. So we've journeyed from the temporary raw edge through the basic economical serged edge, then into the specialized self-enclosed seams, French for delicacy, flat-felled for pure strength, and finally landed on the more complex options using added materials, trimmies for aesthetics, and piece of fabric finishes for structure, all potentially boosted by those essential reinforcements.
Exactly. And it really connects the craft side of sewing directly to commercial and even engineering requirements.
Sure.
Choosing the right finish right from the start, it really impacts both the structural integrity and the final look and feel, the perceived quality of the product.
And here's where it got really interesting for me, actually. The sources specifically mentioned consulting technical standards.
Yes, that's right. Things like ASTM standards, ISO standards. They cited specific ones like ASTM D1683 for testing seam strength failure and ISO 13936 for slippage resistance.
Which is fascinating. It means this isn't just subjective.
Not at all. It's a crucial insight. It confirms that, especially in commercial settings or for high-performance gear, the effectiveness of a seam finish is measurable. It's objective. It relies on strict engineering standards. They are literally testing, how hard you have to pull before the fabric breaks near the seam or before the threads themselves pull out.
Which explains why the flat-felled seam is so valued in high-stress applications. It's not just someone's opinion that it's strong. It's a proven engineered solution that meets specific tensile strength requirements.
Absolutely. It fully transitions seam finishing from a subjective craft skill into a quantifiable technical component of manufacturing. It validates the extra time or material investment for those stronger finishes.
So, okay, considering that really stark distinction we drew between, say, the flat-filled seam, which is all about functional high strength, and something like the Hong Kong finish, which is visible, adds cost, and provides that premium aesthetic.
Mm.
Here's a final thought for you to mull over.
How much of the perceived financial value of a garment do you think is based on those visible aesthetic interior finishes versus the invisible, purely functional ones that are actually engineered to make the garment last for years?